câu hỏi ở phần Q&A. Các câu hỏi sẽ được giải đáp sau khi kết thúc bài báo cáo ạ. Để tham dự chương trình webinar và nghe phiên dịch tiếng Việt, quý bác sĩ, quý khách hàng vui lòng chọn tính năng Interpretation. Nhấn chọn vào Vietnamese và Mute Original Audio để được nghe phiên dịch. Hãy chọn English để nghe hoàn toàn bằng tiếng Anh. Và để không làm mất thời gian hơn nữa, em xin mời bác sĩ Sherif Kandil bắt đầu buổi chia sẻ của mình ạ. First of all, I would like to send the sincere thankfulness to Dr. Sherif Kandil and Dr. Trần Thế Thọ and all Vietnamese distinguished doctors for being here with us today. Wish all of you with luck, health, and happiness. So now I would like to invite Dr. Sherif Kandil begin to share his presentation.
So thanks first of all for the intro. Just want to make sure first before we start that my screen is shared, right?
Yeah.
All right, great. Great. So first, thanks everyone for participating on this webinar today. I think it could be late to where you are right now in Vietnam. It's still here almost 2 p.m.
Thông cảm cho các anh chị là hôm nay là giờ trễ ở Việt Nam rồi. Và chúng tôi sẽ trải qua cùng buổi tối cùng nhau với đây, và chúng tôi mong rằng là buổi tối này là buổi tối rất là thú vị đối với quý vị.
Topic will be basically about mastering course of K-clear aligners, and it's that from the word mastering,
kỹ thuật là aligner, và đây sau đây là một cái kỹ thuật là chúng ta có thể là có những cái khóa nâng cao, và chúng ta sẽ có những cái mức độ nâng cao hơn để chúng ta có thể có được là sau này. Đây là cái khóa đăng bản đầu tiên cho nên nó có thể phù hợp tất cả mọi người, trong đó có những người là mới quen thuộc hay là những người ngay cả là những người bác sĩ chỉnh nha đã làm nhiều cái ca với lại aligner. Tôi xin mong muốn truyền tải đến một cái thông điệp cho tất cả mọi người trong cái webinar hôm nay khoảng từng 1 tiếng đồng hồ, thì có thể là hơn một chút chúng ta sẽ có một khoảng thời gian thêm thời gian là cái question and answer, và và bác sĩ Trần tức là tôi đó sẽ chuyển ngữ cái phần Q&A để chúng ta có thể và như vậy thì quý bác sĩ có thể chọn là 2 cái chức năng ngôn ngữ là tiếng Anh hoặc là tiếng Việt hoặc là tiếng Anh. Nếu các bạn muốn nghe chính cái lời nói của tôi thì có thể chọn tiếng Anh, và sau đó thì có thể là thích nghe tiếng Việt thì chọn qua tiếng Việt. Và thì tôi xin bắt đầu ngày hôm nay bằng cái chúng ta sẽ nói đến những cái chủ đề mà chúng ta sẽ bàn ngày hôm nay. Tôi sẽ nói về cái phần thị trường và cái lịch sử của ngành, và như vậy là và cái khóa này thì là đáng lẽ là khóa rất là dài ngày, nhưng mà tôi chia nó thành 5 cái chủ đề ngày hôm nay. Thì mỗi cái chủ đề nó sẽ khoảng 10 phút đến khoảng 15 phút cho mỗi chủ đề, và chúng ta sẽ có thể đi qua tất cả các cái chủ đề này. Và tốt hơn nhất là chúng ta sẽ nói đến aligner, bắt đầu bằng khi chúng ta nói về cái thị trường và cái lịch sử, và nó là một cái ngành hàng nó rất là phát triển rất là nhanh, và chúng ta có thể thấy được cái sự phát triển đó và có thể áp dụng nó trong cái thực hành của mình trong phòng khám của mình. Và tôi xin giới thiệu về tôi một chút. Và tôi tốt nghiệp năm 2006 và sau đó tôi đi học chuyên về chỉnh nha ở trường Đại học Donau ở Bonn, Thụy Đức. Tôi là thành viên của một số cái hội chỉnh nha, trong đó có cái hội chỉnh nha mà không nhìn thấy được, tức là chỉnh nha bằng những khí cụ không nhìn thấy được của Đức. Và tôi đã điều trị khoảng 4.500 ca, từ những cái ca nhẹ đến những ca trung bình. Và bây giờ chúng ta sẽ như vậy, tôi cũng có một cái phòng khám, và như vậy tôi cũng đi vào trong hôn hợp để có những cái đối tác để chúng tôi có thể là điều trị nhiều hơn. Và tôi cũng từ năm 2006 Và như vậy là tôi đã làm cái loại mà có sự trợ giúp của kỹ thuật viên, tức là chưa phải là số. Và như vậy từ đó tôi rất là chuyên tâm đến điều trị bằng aligner. Sau đó thì chúng tôi muốn giúp truyền tải những cái cách của tôi nó cho tất cả các bác sĩ đồng nghiệp khác trên thế giới. Và như vậy là chúng ta có thể dùng cái clear aligner trong cái phòng khám của quý vị. Và như vậy thì nếu các bạn là chưa đi vào trong lĩnh vực này thì cũng qua đây cũng có thể là thấy. Và chúng tôi đã dùng nó rất là nhiều loại sai khớp cắn chóp nhầy. Thì các bạn có thể tìm thấy những cái công bố về khoa học với tôi bằng cách là đánh cái tên của tôi. Và chúng ta có tôi có đăng ký những cái bằng sáng chế. Và trong số những cái bằng sáng chế đó thì là có những cái được ứng dụng và trong các kỹ thuật trong các cái sản phẩm mà tôi dùng ngày hôm nay. Và đây là chúng ta thấy có một cái sự là, và tôi nghĩ là tôi là cái người là đa năng đa nghề. Tôi có một cái niềm khát vọng rất là bất tận và để học hỏi, và tôi học rất là nhiều và muốn phát triển những cái sản phẩm mới mà nó phù hợp và nó có thể giúp đỡ cho tất cả mọi người. Và như ta nói thì là tôi đã có nhắc đến là từ năm 2006 tôi bắt đầu làm những cây máng mà theo cái kiểu công nghệ cũ, tức là rất là truyền thống, tức là với cái mẫu hàng và chúng tôi sẽ phải cắt các răng ra và là xếp nó lại với cái sáp để đưa ra một cái vị trí mới. Và tôi sẽ dùng một cái loại máng mà ép nhựa thermoform, tức là ép nhiệt để có thể tạo ra được một cây máng. Đó là một cái kỹ thuật mà cũ, cái thật là truyền thống. Và như vậy lúc đó chúng tôi chưa có bây giờ hồi đó cũng đã bắt đầu có những cái 3D scanner và cái con beam CT, nhưng mà rất là khó tiếp cận vì giá rất là cao. Và bây giờ thì mọi thứ nó trở nên là dễ dàng hơn, những máy quét trong miệng, máy in 3D, máy chụp phim CT vân vân. Và như vậy và chúng ta có thể thấy được là bây giờ một trong những cái khó và của và chúng ta có thể có được, và chúng ta có mỗi bệnh nhân và như vậy thì chúng ta sẽ có một cái sản phẩm khác, mức độ của cái chi tiết rất là cao, và đó là một trong những cái quy trình sản xuất nó rất là tỉ mỉ, mà mặc dù rằng và cái ý tưởng về việc cái sản xuất nó có thể là với cái in 3 chiều, rồi sau đó là các quy trình đánh bóng rồi đóng gói vân vân. Và tôi có thể đặt cái video và tôi hy vọng rằng là cái video này nó sẽ được sản xuất được. Chúng tôi hy vọng là video nó sẽ hoạt động tốt trên cái nền tảng webinar này. Đáng tin cậy. Chúng ta đang ở đâu bây giờ? Trong cái thời đại kỹ thuật số đó, tức là phải có độ chính xác rất là cao. Để có được một cái nụ cười xinh đẹp, hãy liên lạc với chúng tôi. K-Line Europe. Về công nghệ số đã thay đổi toàn lên, tăng trưởng nó lên 40% và trong vòng 2 năm qua, và từ so với năm 2021. Ở Á Châu thì chúng ta thấy là cái thị trường rất là lớn. Ở Á Châu thì là sẽ chứng kiến một sự bùng nổ của cái clear aligner, và người ta thấy là tỷ lệ mà tăng của clear aligner tăng trưởng là 25% một năm, và có rất là nhiều bác sĩ ngày càng là dùng cây này, dùng aligner trong phòng khám của mình. và chúng ta thấy là một cái khuynh hướng, là một cái xu hướng, và ở đây và khi chúng ta thấy rằng là nó sẽ phổ biến như là điều trị chữa tủy vậy, hay là aligner, nó rất là phương pháp rất là dễ dàng và nó rất là thú vị, rất là quyến rũ đối với bệnh nhân, và chúng ta không cần phải tốn nhiều thời gian cho bệnh nhân, và nó rất là dễ dàng vì chúng ta có một cái hệ thống có những cái phần mềm cũng như nó sẽ tiên đoán lại cho chúng ta, và như vậy là chúng ta sẽ có thể giải quyết được những cái đau đầu mà trong cái điều trị của chúng ta. Và chúng ta thấy đứng về cái sinh lợi thì là cái clear aligner nó lợi hơn là cái mắc cài truyền thống, nó lợi hơn về cái lợi tức thu nhập của chúng ta, mà nó còn lợi hơn về cái vấn đề về thời gian nữa. Các nghiên cứu đã cho chúng ta thấy rằng và những cái phòng khám thì đưa mà có điều trị clear aligner thì là nó đã tăng lên số lượng phòng khám và có cung cấp dịch vụ aligner tăng lên rất là nhiều. Và đó là điều mà chúng ta muốn nói rằng nó là một cái khuynh hướng. Và như vậy nếu các bạn không có làm cây aligner thì tôi nghĩ rằng là tôi thúc giục các bạn nên là phải dùng cây aligner càng sớm càng tốt. Và có thể các bạn sẽ thay đổi cái ý nghĩ của mình sau cái web đợi như này. Và như vậy thì bác sĩ Tuyết là đã có những cái bác sĩ là bác sĩ Kipling ổng đã có những cái ca mà tái phát thì ổng mới thấy những cây aligner, thì là cây bác sĩ đó đã dùng những cây máng và setup lại để làm cho cây răng nó thẳng cho những cái đó là cây bác sĩ Kipling thì đã làm cho chúng ta ra cái dạng đầu tiên. Cho nên clear aligner nó không phải là cái điều gì mới, nó là một cây đã cũ rồi với cây bác sĩ Kipling Kathleen. Và đây thì về bản chất thì nó là một cây khí cụ tháo lắp, nhưng mà nó có một cái vật liệu rất là đặc biệt, và tôi muốn cho các bạn xem một cái đoạn video. Và đây là từ 1992 bộ phim. Và đây là cái bí mật. Và rất nhiều. Và plastic thì nó rất là dễ dàng hơn, nó là tất cả những cái thứ vật liệu, nó rất là dễ, tức là xét về vật liệu và nó trong suốt. Vì vậy nó không phải. Và chúng ta thấy và chúng ta có một cái bài giảng rất là riêng về cho các cái bác sĩ, và chúng ta thấy và như vậy là chúng ta dùng cây plastic nó có nhiều cái mức độ khác nhau. Ngày hôm nay thì cái loại plastic tức là loại nhựa, và như vậy cách đây 5 năm bất dù cái vật liệu gì thì và nó đóng một vai trò rất là lớn, và bây giờ nó là một cái vật liệu gì mà chúng ta dùng để trong cái
one other thing used to process the plastic was the pressure forming machine. So you can see the difference between these two. So there was one on the right side, and you can see it's more like kind of muscular, right? It's more defined and more sharp. But the one on the left side, it's more vague. And the difference between two of them is that the one is by vacuum forming technology and the other by pressure forming technology. And pressure made a very big change in the world of clear aligners. It made it actually give more precision to adapt to the models, or the setup models that are 3D printed, and accordingly this gives better fit, this gives more precise tooth movements and better retention. So I'll go through a workflow here. I'm going to show you a video. I think it was the same video that was shown to you a while ago. So this was just like an overview of.
Đây là một cái tổng quan. Như vậy là có cái thì Dr. Kandil, do you hear me, Dr. Kandil? There may be some problem.
I'm sorry again.
I am out, and the organizer asked you to check the WhatsApp.
Okay.
Yeah, and I now am out of the interpretation room. There is only one man, one room, and they cannot split into two rooms to interpretation function now. Xin lỗi quý bác sĩ, hiện giờ là chúng ta đang có cái trục trặc kỹ thuật. Thì hold on, Dr. Kandil, give them some minutes to fix the technical problem.
Sure. Shall I wait a little bit before I continue?
Yeah. And in the meantime, trong thời gian đó, in the meantime, if you have any question with Dr. Kandil, we can continue now. No. Not yet. The interpretation occur and disappear again. Trong thời gian đó, nếu bác sĩ có cái câu hỏi gì thì chúng ta có thể đặt ra. Em thấy mạng của bác hơi chập chờn. Mạng của bác là mạng của Thọ hả? Hay là mạng của bác sĩ Kandil? Yeah. Hồi nãy thì nó bị out nhưng mà bây giờ nó ok rồi. Mình cần nói lại một vài slide. Okay. And Dr. Kandil, can will go back some slide and we will continue. Yeah,
okay.
Some slide because of the technical problem and maybe the workflow. Bây giờ thì các bạn có thể
All right. Shall I continue from here, or shall I start now or resume? Apologies, everyone, that we had to stop for a while. Technical issues sometimes are uncontrollable. At least I hope that my video and my voice and my screen also are.
Mà bây giờ thì chức năng interpretation lại bị mất nữa rồi. Yeah.
Yeah. We can continue, Dr. Kandil. Okay, we did continue, Dr. Kandil.
All right, great. Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right, so let's consider this a break for everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the first part, so let's continue and go on. I hope also that you managed to see the video that I turned on a while ago. So just maybe I'll try to stop at every single point really quick here. So first is you go through intraoral scanning, which is something I'm going to discuss in a while. And usually after you scan, your account on the portal will get like a video simulation or a 3D simulation through which you could show it to your patient. Oops, sorry about that. after you confirm the treatment, your patient says, okay, I want this, they agree to everything, then basically we start to manufacture the aligners, and they're done in some setups. Like as you can see over here, these are several models for the same arch that will be printed on the 3D printer. After they're printed, afterwards it goes through the ultrasonics to remove the extra resin on the material. And this is the UV light that will like solidify or harden the models to their final form. After that, and this is one of the important things that I mentioned a while ago, comes the thermal forming, and it's using pressure. These are cuts. And then polishing is done, and then packaging. Then you receive the kit of aligners. All right, so let's go through the workflow, but more in like slides. So we mentioned at the beginning, like you have to take like an intraoral scan or impressions. Certainly we do recommend that you use intraoral scanners if you have, or if you still didn't get intraoral scanners, something that I personally recommend a lot. However, if you don't have it, you could still take impressions and send it to Vidang in Vietnam, and then you have to manage the portal. Now, the portal is our website where you could basically upload like all the data of the cases, whether the photos, the X-rays, details as comments about the cases, and so on. And I'll show you in a while how this works. So if you're going to take silicon impressions, I would rather suggest that you take additional silicon impressions. If you're using polyvinyl siloxane, if you're using polyether, sure, I mean, you're going to go for using Imprigum. And you could, or better, use like two-phase technique, where you could put like first a putty and then light on top. There are so many techniques in order to ensure to get the best impression. However, I think the best approach is always to just move from silicon impressions to using intraoral scanners. I know that in Asia, it might need still some time till many practices start to adopt using intraoral scanners, but honestly, it does improve the process a lot, whether the quality is better, the time saved is way better or more, and at the end also you save the cost of the material. However, by all means, please do not ever take alginate impressions, okay? I mean, I'm assuming that everyone already knows that, but...
Open wide. All right, now bite down. And, just breathe.
I think most of us have seen this before, or at least had these kind of patients, especially when you use alginate. All right, so what about the intraoral scanners? And now I've mentioned that intraoral scanners are very attractive nowadays, and it's not just only a benefit for your practice in terms of saving time or saving money, but it's also a benefit also for your patients. It's now used even as a marketing tool. I mean, maybe in the future it's going to be standard, but now it's still used as a marketing tool. It enhances the patient's experience when they say, okay, oh, my doctor used this scanner that was in my mouth instead of using these ugly, yucky mold in my mouth. And it leaves a really good impression on the patients, and even increases the conversion rate later on, increases the confidence in the doctor that the doctor is investing in technology, right? And one of the main factors of, let's say, clients or let's say doctors like yourself not adopting intraoral scanners was because of the price. And I totally get it that the price point will be something that a lot might be talking about. However, there are so many calculations for it, right? And there are so many intraoral scanners out there. You could go for the best or the fastest, like the TRIOS 3Shape, which is something I recommend for those who have a little bit of extra cash and want to get something that is just really at the top level, where you could scan full upper and lower arches and bite in less than a minute time. Or you could go for something that could save you a lot of money as well, and actually have this, like, you know, like I call it like the sweet spot between speed and I'll try to jump a little bit because of time. So, I mean, the K scan the scan that K-Line also offers is a very affordable scanner that, again, like joins or is like in the sweet spot between speed. So you could scan the full arch. An unexperienced doctor could scan the full arch, upper, lower, together with the bite in just 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, that is certainly something that I think many practices already are okay with, better than taking impressions. So look, it could take 10 minutes to scan upper and lower and take the bite, or even longer sometimes than 10 minutes. So I would urge you certainly to look into iOS options or intraoral scan options in your market. So now, moving on to the portal submission, which is a very critical and important point. Now, you've taken the impressions or the scans. You need to upload them somewhere. You need to put in your information in terms of like, what do I need from this case? What does the patient want in terms of treatment? You should upload the photos, the x-rays, and so on. And this is where the portal comes in place, where everything is uploaded then on the portal. So you'll go first to clearalignerportal.com, as you can see here on the top part, and you'll put in your email and password. When you log in, sorry for that. When you log in, you're gonna find like a dashboard that has the languages. Unfortunately, still Vietnamese is not there, but maybe something we could work on in the future. You'll find a dashboard that has all your cases, and you can see whatever cases were in draft, or there's action required that you need to address or answer a question that our planners have asked you. You could create a new case through here, this green big button over here. You could click on it in order to create your case. You're going to put the patient details. Save, and here you start to create the clinical data of the patient. So you upload the files, the clinical photos, the x-rays. Certainly, if you have the scans, you could directly upload it here. It's very easy to just, drop it in there. And so here the case is created. So you could basically find all the details for it, and you could still put some comments on the right side where you could mention in it more about the case, like in terms of like your opinion, what you exactly want to be, let's say, corrected. In spite, you might have already answered that in the previous steps where you selected like what you want to be corrected, overjet, overbite, and so on. However, you could still put here like further comments if you want something very specific. So, how to take photos. I mean, I will not go a lot in depth into it, but I think nowadays there's a lot of very good mobile phones that could take very good photos, even better than getting a professional camera. So after you take the photos, the extraoral, the intraoral photos, make sure that the patient smile or the smile line is really correctly interpreted. I always make fun of this a little bit because, you know, a lot of people take smileys, or when somebody tells someone, hey, I'm going to take a photo of you, it's not predictable that always the patient will smile correctly or show the real smile. And it's quite important actually to guarantee that the patient is showing the real smile, because you just don't want only to correct the teeth, you want also to correct the whole smile line of the patient. So one tip is to look at the muscle around the eye or the orbicularis oculi, if it's already contracted or not. If it's contracted, then it's most likely a genuine real smile. If it's not contracted, that it is a let's say fake smile. So after you also upload the OPGs, sometimes in some cases, it's quite necessary to have the letters-of-volumetric radiograph. I know that not everyone on this seminar today or webinar has the possibility to make letters-of-volumetric radiographs. And it's not always necessary in every single case. However, it's more required in cases where we have a skeletal component involved in the treatment. So after everything is done, then there's the treatment plan. And the treatment plan is comes in form of a 3D simulation. And in the 3D simulation, you could control, basically, if you click on these two arrows over here, I hope that you could see my cursor. So if you click on it, then it will continue to loop several times, which you obviously need whenever you want to check the case for a while or show it to the patient. So you could just click on it so that you let it keep on making these loops. And you could control the speed you want to see the video. So in this clock symbol, you could click on it from 1 to 3. 1 is slowest, 3 is the fastest. And after you confirm the case, and the case will be shipped out to you in its lovely packaging, together with the name of the patient, the details on the aligners, aligner pouches, together with a lab report that has the details. What exactly does the production want to tell you in terms of how many aligners are in the package, when will you do IPR, and others, and these things we're going to talk about in a while. You also receive a really nice aligner box you give to the patient, and this aligner box, you get with it this chewy and another aligner remover. So the chewy is basically if the patient needs instead of biting on the aligner hard, especially the first like day or two, when you want the aligner to sit really good on the teeth, basically the patient could use the chewy in order to bite on it, and this facilitates faster fitting of the aligners on the teeth. While the aligner remover is for sure, it makes it easy to take out the aligner instead of girls using their nails to pick out the aligner, and which might cause that they might have some chipping in their fingernails, or even the aligner could break. So we prefer to use this aligner remover accordingly, only if the aligner is so tight on the teeth and they need help to take it out. So now I'm going to go through IPR. What is IPR? And also going to show you attachments so that you have an idea about them, because it's like almost in every single case there is IPR that will be done. And IPR has many different words for it. So IPR stands for interproximal reduction. Another word for it is stripping. Another word is slicing. It's basically just removing enamel between the teeth in order to create space and accordingly move teeth easier. Now, this is one mechanism in order to create space whenever you have deficiency in the arch. So it's like if you have a dental-alveolar discrepancy in a positive way, so that basically you have less space than required, and accordingly here you might need to use these strips that could actually they're sent with the package, so they could come in this form over here as the sandblasted paper, which is very easy to use. However, you could also use other techniques I'm going to also show you in a while. If you're more of a professional, you want to use things that are faster, then you could use contra-angle handpieces that are way much time-saving than the sandblasted one. Now, these sandblasted ones or these strips that you see over here, whenever you move them between the teeth, try always to move in one direction. So I usually do not tend to put it between the teeth in the contact and then go back and forth, because it's so annoying for the patient. And patients usually tell me, Dr. Sherif, I think the only thing that I hate about this is just the sound, because really the sound is really annoying. So it's just only in one direction would be more than enough, and just make sure that you have total clearance of the contact between the teeth where you need to do the IPR in. I hope I'm not talking too fast, that the interpreter is following up with me as well. So I'm sorry if I'm talking a bit fast, because I'm just trying to catch up with lost time. So the IPR report would look like the following. It will have all the standard treatment notes on one side, but it will always have the IPR chart in it. Now, what you see here that is very colorful here on the right side is the IPR chart, and it has which session exactly will IPR be done in. It doesn't mean here by session like normal client visits. The client could come to you at any time for inspection, but this is here meant only by the IPR sessions. But most of the doctors tend to adjust the patient appointments according to the IPR sessions required. So you'll find 3 indicators here that are very important. Now, the first indicator is the location, and this here is marked by this symbol of an arrow. So this is here where IPR will be done. Now, how much IPR will be done is written here in red. So this is here 0.2 millimeter will be removed from the whole contact, not from a single surface, but from the whole contact. We need 0.2 millimeter space to be created there. And then you'll find over here written like the number. Now, this is the number of the aligner. So that means here that the patient, when they start to wear aligner number 6, they have to come in for inspection as well as do IPR, which is most important for that for that sake here in this report. So the patient will come over number 6, and you will do the IPR from distal canine to distal to the other canine in the lower arch in order to create a space of 0.2 millimeters. Now, in spite of the fact that the thickness of this IPR strip itself is 0.2 millimeters, but it does not mean that if you use it and clear in the space between them or free of the space means that you will reach 0.2. It's usually going to be that you're creating 0.1 first. And you have to make sure that, okay, I'm going to have to increase the space in spite that the strip itself is moving between the teeth up and down very easily. But still, it does not mean that you've reached 0.2 millimeter, because the surface of the IPR strip itself has been abraded a little bit, or the particles on the surface have fallen off, and accordingly, that's why its thickness actually or width decreased than the 0.2. Now, the best way to know exactly how much space you created is to use an IPR gouge. Now, this could be also purchased at Vidang, or maybe, I don't know, in Vietnam could be also online, where we get these IPR gouges, and they're like assorted from 0.1 to 0.5. I mean, it's very, very good because it gives you an exact estimation of the exact space that you created between the teeth in order to stick to the exact required space, no more, no less than the one prescribed in the plan. Because the IPR that K-Line puts in on the lab report is basically what the software exactly calculates. So that's why it's quite crucial to stick to it. You could use these manual IPR kits as well, or if you want to go to more, let's say, the higher level of professionality, then you could get these contour angle pieces. And these contour angle pieces here, as you see, just didn't take more than maybe 3 seconds, right? And it saves a lot of time. So this is if you have a lot of aligner cases, or you're an orthodontist, most probably you already have this in your practice, and it should save you a lot of time. A question I always ask is, do we do stripping or IPR before the treatment, or within the treatment, or after the treatment? Now, there is no one single answer to it, but there is one maybe lesson to be learned out of it, at least. So whether stripping is going to be done in the beginning, let's say when the patient starts to wear number 1 or not, this is something that you could somehow to control to some extent. It's usually preferable not to do it from number 1 immediately, especially if you know that the patient could be like a little bit annoyed. So you could even request to say, I want IPR to be done starting aligner number 2 or 3. I prefer number 3. So the patient comes after the first time they'll receive the aligners, you put the attachments, and then they come once again after 1 month, and then you start to do the IPR. That's one advantage. The second advantage is you don't want to do IPR when it's still crowded, right? You need to create a little bit of a space just to allow teeth to expand a little bit, and then do IPR between the teeth. Now, this is something that is upon request because some other doctors prefer a lot of IPR at the beginning of the treatment. So this is down to you as a practitioner to write down on the portal whether I want IPR from aligner number 1 or number 3. If for the patient it does not matter, and for you also will not make a big difference, I would still recommend to put the IPR from number 3. And again, you could put it in the comments in the portal, and accordingly this will be the plan will be done accordingly. So the goal that I wanted also to say here is that IPR at the end is also very beneficial. Depends on the case for sure, but you could see here on the left side there is contact between the teeth already, and the shape of the teeth, the anatomy here is very, very Asian, I would say, right? I mean, this is a very typical genetic manifestation of Asian teeth, where you have this trapezoid shape sometimes, and accordingly the teeth will touch one another at a certain point, but still they have embrasures between them that do not look really nice. So aesthetically, it would be much better after we finish the treatment, if you want and your patient wants ask for further IPR at the end in order to close the contact even further or broaden the contact further, and accordingly this creates a better aesthetic appearance and also increases the retention through increased friction between the teeth. Now, the funny thing is that if you compare or ask today one orthodontist in this webinar today and ask another dentist about IPR and their view about it, you'll find mixed views. So the general dentist would always think that IPR is such an aggressive thing to do to the teeth and enamel, right? And I think many of you might agree to that. I mean, I don't, but many of you might. However, if you ask the orthodontist, it's absolutely normal. I mean, they do it every day. It's like national sport for an orthodontist to do IPR every day. So this is something that, they even did a case study on it to compare the perception of the dentist to IPR in comparison to the orthodontist's opinion. In all cases, I mean, studies have proven also that the enamel surface actually gets even better after the IPR. So it gets more smoother than it was before. But this is in condition that the patient has very good oral hygiene measures. And in condition also that you inform or instruct your patients to use toothpaste with extra fluoride for teeth or enamel regeneration. Now, the surface, as you can see, the one below is the one that is after the IPR has been done, and the one on the upper left side is the one before IPR has been done. So just a funny fact is that actually the human mouth contains more bacteria than there are people on this earth. Only in just one person's mouth, there are more bacteria in there than on Earth. And I mean, it's really amazing because the amount of bacteria in our body is just crazily, I mean, you cannot even imagine it. So like even the bacteria inside our intestines could be more than all the stars out there in space. So bacteria is such a wild, let's say, I call it this, I mean, like animal with so many variants and so many numbers, like it sometimes just fascinates me. So if we look at engagers or attachments, now attachments are used for two reasons. It's either attachments will be used for retention and anchorage. So basically that means that the attachment will be put on the teeth in order to increase the fit between the aligner and the teeth, and this fit or this increased retention would help that aligners sit better on the teeth and accordingly move teeth better. On the other side, the attachments could be used in order to have specific teeth movements that will be applied for, let's say, more difficult movements, whether it is rotations, whether it's axial correction, and so on. The most common type of attachments are the rectangular attachments. So they could be vertical, they could be horizontal, and each of them has its use or its advantage. But nowadays, we're using more and more optimized attachments in our treatments in order to have more predictability and more customization for every tooth. So basically, optimized attachments is such an amazing method in order to, again, customize teeth movements to every tooth in the arch. And it doesn't mean by that there's just like, let's say, many different kinds of or types of attachments for every single tooth, but it's more of like the location and the type that is used on specific teeth is different than others. And thus they look like this half moon shape rather than these vertical ones or horizontal ones that I just showed you a while ago. And attachments have proven throughout many case studies to have a very effective output on the teeth movement. So even if we compare, for example, using 3 attachments to 5 attachment cases, you find the level of predictability of the crown movement could increase 380% if you only increase 2 attachments per quadrant. Just increasing 2 will increase the predictability of the crowns by 380% and the roots by 700%. It's quite obvious why attachments are important. Unfortunately, a lot of patients still do not understand that, and sometimes they do not want attachments, but it is a very, very efficient method in order to move teeth efficiently. Now, whenever you get the package of aligners, you will find one package with written on it aligner 0 or just template on it, and accordingly, this template number 0 is going to be soft. You're going to find it made out of a different material that is going to be way much easier and more flexible to adapt on teeth. And this is what you need in order to make or put an attachment. And usually the attachments are placed in, let's say, 99% of cases, you place the attachments in the very first appointment for the patient. So the patient comes in, you're going to have to make really good isolation. You're going to put the composite, you could fill it, the attachment area. You can see over here, the attachment area here and there. And you're going to fill it with either resin cement or flowable composite. I personally prefer to use flowable composite for that. You can see over here, you put your the attachments. Now, there are many tricks in order to get the perfect attachment, but there is no time for it right now. So I'm just trying to touch base on the very important basics. You're going to acid etch the areas where the attachments are going to be placed. Then you're going to put primer and bond. And whenever you post the attachments, the template, try to make sure that you are fixing it with your fingers from the occlusal surface as well as from the labial surface in order to make sure that it's very well adapted from the vertical end and also horizontal end. Then you light cure it and you remove, and then afterwards you could just remove the flashes or the extra areas, extra composite around the attachment. You will get in the box like attachment placement brochure that gives you more instructions in case you need some instructions on how you put attachments. All right, so my favorite topic before we jump into the clinical part, my favorite topic is the material. Now, the materials that Keelan use are one of the best materials out there in the whole market. We use multi-layered materials that have way higher efficiency in comparison to any other material out there. And this comes from someone who used, by the way, before used PTG materials. Nowadays, using Zendura FLX in my treatments or cases has changed the whole game of teeth movements. It could be a material that is that puts more, let's say, expenses, or it's more costly to get because the material is almost like 6 times more expensive than the normal materials out there. But honestly, it really saves so much time in the whole treatment to use a better material from the beginning and decrease the rate of fractures of aligners, to decrease the rate of refinements at the end of the treatment. All of these things are very important together with the patient comfort that comes also with using a more flexible material like Zendura FLX. Now, these here, as you can see in front of you, these are a couple of advantages in terms of graphs that would show you how the material is more efficient than anything else out there in the market. And especially this one over here, you can see that states that the material has less force on teeth from the beginning. And what I mean by that is that it has nothing to do with the efficiency of movements, but it has only effect on how the patient perceives the pain. So it's not a brittle material that when you place it, it will go tuck on the teeth and it could hurt. I'm going to show you a video a while ago. In a while. And the material has a retention of the forces for a long period of time. So it applies light continuous forces, almost continuous. It's not because the aligner is removable, but whether you call it light intermittent or light continuous forces, in order to keep the teeth always under pressure or tension to move. Now, if you compare it to other materials out there in the market that lose these advantages or forces in just the very first couple of hours of wearing it. And that's something that you want to avoid your patients to wear by all means. So here on the left side, this is PTG material. PTG stands for polyethylene terephthalate glycol. You know, you'll not remember that name, but it's let's say the commodity material out there. And you can see the one on the right side, this is the Zendura FLX. Again, the seating is totally different. You hear here like a snap on the left side. On the other side, it seats really nice on the teeth. And that's one of the things where patients feel way more comfort wearing the Zendura FLX aligners than any other aligners out there. Last but not least is that the material actually has way higher resistance to staining. So patients drinking coffee, tea and so on, it's still not something that we would say or recommend. Say, okay, you could drink whatever you want on it, but while wearing the aligners, but it's certainly way higher in terms of resistance than other materials out there. All right, so let's start with case selection. We've ran out of time, but I'll try to move forward here in the next like 20 minutes throughout the last couple of slides. So I always start here with we need more space. So basically cases with crowding, cases with crooked teeth where you need more space. And to create space, you could create it through one of these techniques or 2 or even 3 of these techniques combined together. So either we're going to expand the arch, or we're going to do IPR or distalization, or you're going to extract or use mix and match of more of them. And we follow in a lot of cases Steiner and Ricketts findings, or let's say analysis in terms of every movement, depending upon the movement of the teeth, in which direction accordingly increases how much in ratio towards increasing the whole circumference of the arch. And nowadays we focus more, and at least we try, let's say from the platter side, from K-line side, we try to focus on full comprehensive movements, full comprehensive treatments. Only if your patient says, I want a very simple treatment, social smart treatment, you could certainly offer that as well. Now, I might be aware already that a lot of cases in the Far East Asia are different in the level of complexity than, let's say, European patients. And for that, the types of cases that you might be choosing might be cases that are darkly like moderate or even severe cases, rather than the cases that I might be showing you today for some patients who could be like within the range of mild to moderate cases. However, I think we have a decent amount of doctors also in Vietnam that could be showing on later webinars as well their own cases that they treated on their Vietnamese patients. So Ivona, 32 years old, she's class 2, div 2 with a deep bite and a midline shift. And Ivona came in with the same request of that she wants to fix her teeth. However, we didn't focus only on fixing teeth, but the whole view or aesthetics of her lower facial portion, let's say, and how it reflects on her whole face, how her smile line looks like, and how we could improve it. And we decided to take a comprehensive treatment from dealing with this case to have objectives of treating her her crowding, as well as to do some distalization. We used class 2 elastics in this case as well, and achieved very, very slight mandibular advancement, while at the same time working on the overjet and the overbite to improve it a lot. So this is here where we started from, and left sonometric radiographs of findings or analysis. And this here, the treatment plan we started with, we used even a little bit of a thick-sized attachments in order to guarantee, especially at the back end or the teeth of the back, it's really difficult to move, and thus we decided to use thicker attachments in order to guarantee more of like root response rather than just only crown or inclination. So after 4 months, you could start to realize already that there is a difference that is seen throughout the treatment. Now, throughout the very slight mandibular advancement with the class 2 elastics, we start to see improvement in the overjet and also the overbite while we were intruding the front teeth. And this is here the transformation and how it looks like at the end in a very short time, a very short period of almost 5 months period. Now, again, what I wanted to highlight is that we're not just only treating teeth, but we are looking always at our patients from a holistic view, like how could we really improve the smile line, the profile, et cetera, et cetera. And here you can see on the left side, this is the before and after 5 months. Her facial profile, her facial view, everything changed. Paganian, the mandibular angle, her nasolabial sulcus, as well as mentolabial sulcus, the coherence of the lips together, everything has changed in a very short period of time. And I'm a little bit more of a fan of using now more of like videos, video footage in order to capture more than just only the smile of the patient, but more of the dynamic smile, talk, the patient, how the patient reacts to even the camera while smiling. All these things now are quite important to take into consideration rather than just only fixing teeth and just making them straight, right? So Sharon, she came into our practice and she told me, you know, Dr. Sherif, my wedding is in only 4 months' time, and I need to get my teeth fixed, and I have a limited budget. And she came in with only the request to fix the lower teeth. She had crowding in the lower front part, and she didn't even want to do the upper teeth. So we were somehow left with a tight overjet as well as overbite, and we needed to do something about it. And the solution was accordingly that we would focus more on IPR, increasing the rate of IPR a bit in order to achieve more space. And then we'll do, I decided to do extrusion of the 4-1 accordingly using a button rather than using an attachment. If you had some time, let's say 2 or 3 months extra, I would have done it with an attachment as well. But in this case, since the time was super tight, we needed to use a different technique. So first we started the treatment with normal aligners, and then as I mentioned, we start to put a button on the 4-1 in order to extrude it, and only 2 weeks time we managed to extrude it. So I mean, this is a tip that maybe some of you already know, where you could use buttons and elastics in order to extrude or even sometimes intrude teeth at a very fast rate. So over here you could see that the button, composite button, was placed on the front end of the teeth, or let's say on the labial surface. And from the back, there was like a hook that was done on the aligner in order to stretch the elastic and let the aligner extrude the tooth outwards to fit in the socket. So you can see here now, it's like everything is now on the same vertical height. And this is here after only 5 months. And now we have a happy Sharon who managed to have a lovely wedding. She didn't send me photos though, but I believe she did have a lovely wedding. So here, this is the before and after, and you can see the parallelism of the roots, which I always count on at the end of the treatment to take another radiograph in order to see the parallelism of roots at the end. This is here, the upper part is the before, and the lower video footage is thereafter. So let's take a slightly more complicated case, and here it's a class 2 div2 deep bite and a lot of arch deficiency, and here we had almost like 6 millimeter arch deficiency, which in this case scenario, some doctors would opt for extraction rather than going for expansion. And here I opted more for expansion and doing IPR. So these were the objectives. We need to expand in the upper and upright the lower buccal segments. Accordingly, we'll have space to decrowd the teeth, or let's say to align the teeth. With the help of attachments and also class 2 elastics, we managed to reach this result at the end. So a result of 18 months time treatment, 36 upper aligners were used, and we used 10 in refinements, 28 used in lower, and 6 for refinements. Now, an easier case, just a class 1 case, and very slight crowding in the lower. And over here, we did very slight expansion as well as afterwards IPR. Again, as I might have said before, try, if you find it possible, to request the treatment not to do IPR from the very beginning. It's way better for on the comfort level of the patient on one side, and on the other side, try to achieve some very slight expansion first in order to, when you do IPR, then you do it in slightly open contacts rather than tough contacts, in order to guarantee somehow that you are removing, or are you doing IPR only between the teeth and removing from the mesial distal surface, not from part of the labial or part of the lingual surface. All right, so moving on, fun facts about the moon. There's only 12 human beings that stepped on the moon's surface, and they were all Americans. And the dark side of the moon is still undiscovered. So the dark side of the moon, the back part is, I mean, nobody saw it till now. I mean, China has sent, I think, one of its rovers to explore the back side of the moon, but till now, we never saw the back side of the moon. I mean, I just love these facts about space. And now moving on for another case, here we have a crowding, and it's you can see the average crowding is average 4 to 5 millimeters in dental-alveolar discrepancy. And we have deep bite of 5 to 6 millimeters. And this was here the facial view after 8 months. Now, I'm sorry that if I today was going a little bit fast, and also that I did not put all the details of all the cases. If you'd like to have more details, certainly you could check online more case studies about some of those cases that were already published, and you could check the details of all the treatment and all the case evolution. So it's your before and after treatment, before and after, and then transformation from the lateral view. Now, I think we have maybe like 3 more patients before we move into retention and finalize today's webinar. So Kira, she had a different kind of problem. Kira came in only with a request of just fixing her teeth, but I told Kira about her that her aesthetics actually could change a lot, especially that she has like slightly compressed lower facial portion of her face. And there was the easy way, or the shortcut, and there was the highway. There was the easy way where there would be only just a correction of her deep bite, as you can see over here. There is the highway where we would go for more of correcting the lower facial height by increasing it. And I tried to convince her of the second one, because basically this was what will make big difference for her external aesthetics as well. So in order to do that, I told her it's going to take way longer period of treatment than just only intruding the front teeth, because we're going to have to extrude the posterior segments or the back teeth, and accordingly this would take more time. Plus it's not very predictable from the very first time, so sometimes we need to give it like in 2 phases, or sometimes the refinements are more when it comes to the extrusion of the back teeth. So this is here the treatments that we designed accordingly. After 2 months, we started to have expansion enough in the upper and the lower. We used, again, class 2 elastics. And this was here the facial transformation at the end. And again, you see the upper part of her face here is before, and then the lower part is after. Then you have on the upper right side the before and after for the upper arch, then before and after for the lower arch. You can see or realize that the attachments are horizontally and rectangle in shape, so that they help in the extrusion of the teeth and accordingly, again, to increase the facial height. So almost the last case for today, where we have here an anterior open bite. So this patient came in the practice and she had jaw clicking on the right side, as well as an open bite tongue thrust, as you can see here in the right part of the tomography for the right condyle. It is anteriorly placed then where it should be by almost a whole millimeter or 2 millimeters. And this was somehow the let's say mallocated condyle that led to the fact that she had some clicking on her right side that was very annoying to her. But again, combined with all the other problems that she had with the tongue thrust as well as the open bite that we needed to solve, we needed to put a plan where we wanted to start first by solving her acute problem or the symptoms through using something that could alleviate or remove the pain of her jaw. And thus we use something called the aqua splint, that is basically like almost a water pad on both sides in order to do some equilibrium for the bite on the right and the left side together, and accordingly relax the musculature of the patient. And that's what we did in the first almost 4 weeks time. But we didn't stop there. Together with that, we designed a bluegrass appliance, and it looks like this. Now, the bluegrass appliance is a very, very interesting appliance. I don't know if you use it often in Vietnam or not, but basically it helps a lot to avoid, or let's say eliminate or break the habit of tongue thrust. And we use this in combination together with the aqua splint, where the patient just wears it only like 20 minutes a day or something for 4 weeks time. With this, we managed to solve 2 things. So on one side, it was that we removed or eliminated the acute symptoms of the TMJ, and on the other side, we managed to correct the bite, let's say the habit that used to affect the bite, which is the tongue thrust. And then afterwards, we started to work on intruding the posterior segments in order to adjust her bite further and close her bite in the front teeth. So it took almost 6 months time first to correct the habit of tongue thrust, and then afterwards, with only 2 months afterwards with aligners, I think also with the refinements it reached almost 3 months. There we go. In 3 months, including refinements, we managed to reach that result. And a TMJ tomography after the treatment shows that the right condyle open side is, or open view, is in a way better location, posteriorly located than it was before. And the patient now, after almost 2 years, she came in back for further like follow-up treatment for the treatment or post-treatment, and had no signs, no symptoms of any problems in the TMJ anymore. For cases where you have spacing in the upper and the lower, it's, I think, way much easier and faster to read these cases, and certainly depends on so many factors. But for example, Tony over here, he came in and he works in the stock market. He wanted to have a very, very fast treatment. And usually always ask you, okay, so the thick labial tissue, in order to close the space here in the middle, should you remove it in the beginning or the end? The answer is always the end of the treatment. Do not remove it throughout the treatment, because otherwise it will make space closure very, very difficult and very painful. So basically remove it at the end, even if it swallows a little bit, and then at the end you could remove it. That would be the best option I would recommend. So here what we did to him, we closed the space first in the midline diastema, then we increased the size of the upper laterals through using composite veneers to have at the end happy Tony. But that's only in 3 months' time. So some food for thought, I would say. Food for thought, things like tips, things to keep in mind. This is, let's say, very relevant when it comes to translation, or let's say tooth movements, bodily movement, which is translation, as well as torquing. The green is what is possible only with aligners. What's marked in yellow is what's possible with aligners together with accessories, and red is not very predictable when it comes to using aligners. What about grinding patients who grind really much on their teeth? If you know about that from the very beginning, before even you start the treatment for your patient, it would be great that you mentioned that on the portal, because accordingly there are specific materials that could help a lot for such patients, or at least materials that do not break. So they're specifically designed for these patients with a very high durability. And when it comes to bone loss, there are many theories about it here, but I'm referring to one by Professor Dr. Gerhard Polzer, where he said that as long as you have bone till half the distance between the CEJ to the apex, you could still enroll this in an aligner treatment. And one final thing is that the posterior settling of the teeth, if you have some space at the end of the treatment, do not let the patient panic, and you shouldn't panic as well, because it's something that we call it like a temporary posterior open bite that sometimes happens. And this is resolved by itself alone at the end of the treatment when there is super eruption that happens in the teeth. So it's basically something that happens throughout the treatment when patients grind a little bit. So basically they start, when they grinding, they're pushing through the aligner, the upper and the lower teeth, and thus they create this this space. But again, this is not something to worry about. There are ways to solve it or to avoid it. I would say if you know that the patient is also a grinding patient, you could mention from the beginning, and also request that the posterior teeth would include some extrusion of almost 1 millimeter throughout the treatment in order to counteract such a potential result. So contraindications for aligners, there's no thin line to say which one is a contraindication, which not. It depends mainly, in my opinion, on what you as a practitioner could do or not do. That's the most important and the bottom line of what makes a case indicated or not indicated. And then after the whole sum of the treatment, so I would always say that if the planner, or let's say the treatment plan stated 8 months, for example, I'd say add always like 2 to 3 extra months as for refinement. You never know what refinements, how many refinements might be needed. Thus, adding a little bit of a buffer is always better than not. And last but not least, retention. Now, there are a lot of protocols online for retention, but I'll leave that to you to choose which retention protocol that you want. The only tip that I would always give here is that always try to use double retention. So put a permanent retainer, and after that, take another impression and make a removable retainer as for a backup. This is the best way I would always recommend for all your patients who do orthodontics. And we even have a prefabricated retainer.
Mix the self-etching primer according to the instructions.
I just you turn off the sound. So we have here a prefabricated aesthetic retainer that could be very interesting to for you instead of using wired retainers. These are very, very efficient and very effective, something that I would certainly recommend you to include in your practice as well. I hope that despite the fact that I was super fast in the last hour, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that, that you still managed to gather so much information. And according to Edinburgh's curve, or the forgetting curve, after 1 week, you might forget almost 90% of all the information that you got if it's new information. So I still hope that you would remember the 10% or the most important 10% out of this webinar today. I want to thank you so much for being here. Thanks for participating. I'm open for all your questions to answer within the next like 10 to 15 minutes time. If at any time you want later on to email me, feel free to email me at sherif@clearxaligners.com. So thanks once again. So I think it's going to take me a little bit of time to translate all the Vietnamese. in order to answer your questions. So I'm going to be waiting for the interpreter to get back to me.
Dạ, cảm ơn bài chia sẻ của Dr. Sherif Kandil và phần phiên dịch của bác sĩ Trần Thế Thọ. Sau đây chúng ta sẽ chuyển đến phần Q&A là phần chia sẻ và hỏi đáp ạ. Yeah, thanks for the sharing of Dr. Sherif Kandil, and now we will move to the Q&A part.
Bây giờ chúng ta sẽ chuyển qua hello, yeah. And we have here several questions, Dr. Sherif. And the first question appeared very early in your presentation. This doctor would like to ask you about how to do the settling, how to do the occlusal settling in with the K-line system, the settling, how it look like settling, occlusal settling.
Yeah, is it meant by the question the settling, like if there is a posterior open bite that happened, or
maybe he or she very concerned about the not good occlusal settling, not
okay.
good occlusal settling. Yeah.
So as I might have mentioned at the end, that the occlusal settling at the end is something that could be addressed reactively or proactively. So do you want me first to continue and then you translate, or you want to translate simultaneously?
And you can speak a short, very some sentence and stop, and I do the translation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically it could be treated in a reactive way or proactive way.
Dạ, thì chúng ta có thể là làm cái sự gài khớp của các răng tốt theo một trong hai cơ chế là reactive, là mang tính phản ứng lại, hoặc là proactive là mang tính chủ động.
Yeah, so a reactive would mean that basically after the treatment ends, within almost like 2 months time of wearing a retainer, the occlusal settling will happen by itself. That's the reactive way.
Thì cái cơ chế mà để gài khớp settling mà reactive là sau khi mà mình chấm dứt điều trị trong khoảng thời gian 1-2 tháng thì các răng nó tự động nó gài khớp đó, thì người ta gọi đó là cơ chế settling mang tính là phản ứng, mang tính phản ứng reactive. Yeah.
Now, the proactive way, which is what I recommend, is to make sure in the planning that there will be some extrusion that will happen on the posterior teeth throughout the treatment for almost 1 millimeter throughout the whole treatment.
Dạ, thì cái phương pháp proactive mà tôi khuyến cáo là mình chủ động đưa vào trong cái việc lập kế hoạch điều trị, và trong kế hoạch điều trị của mình mình làm những cái sự hoạch định để nó trồi sẵn, thì khi nó trồi sẵn xong rồi bằng cái máng thì khi chúng ta thoát ly cái máng ra thì nó khớp. Okay.
There's also another way where at the end of the treatment, basically, it's not something that I would recommend, but some doctors might do it if the patient might be annoyed by the occlusal settling, is to place buttons and elastics on the side here and create like a box and let the teeth settle together. But again, this is not something that I recommend. It's only if the patient is annoyed by it.
Dạ, thì là có một phương pháp khác nữa mà tôi không khuyến cáo làm, nhưng tôi biết là các bác sĩ khác làm. Đó là chúng ta gắn các cái button, các cái nút ở trên các răng và cho bệnh nhân họ đeo cái thun, cái elastic, thì nó có thể giúp cho cái hàm răng khớp lại, mà thầy bác sĩ Sherif không khuyến cáo làm cái đó. Dạ. Như vậy thì this is đây là cái câu trả lời có chắc là cũng có thể giúp cho bác sĩ Quang Nguyên, có thể Quang Nguyễn hay là Quang Nguyên gì đó là được cho ha. And the second question is with the K-clear system, can we got a very good the smile art, and how to clear system create a very nice smile art?
Yeah.
And any consideration in the K-clear system to create very consonant, very nice smile art.
Yeah. So we always, as platters on our side on the back end, we always look at the smile arch very carefully, and that's why we always try to insist to for the doctors to send always the extra oral photos. This is on the back end. However, we're working also on the front end to provide the doctors later on some kind of a demonstration for the smile line, so that if they need to change anything and visually they could see how the smile line would look like on the clinical photo itself. So this is something that should be released soon. However, for the time being, we're doing it only on the back end.
Yeah, thì cái việc mà tạo cái cung cười đẹp á, là chúng ta cần phải đánh giá trong các cái hình chụp, và chúng ta sẽ xét đến cái mức độ mà di chuyển răng theo chiều trên dưới. Những cái việc đó là trong cái phần trình bày của tôi là nó nằm ở sau hậu trường. Chứ thực sự là chúng ta sẽ lập kế hoạch về việc di chuyển các răng để tạo ra cung cười. Chúng ta sẽ biết được mức độ di chuyển của nó, chúng ta tích hợp vào trong cái kế hoạch di chuyển răng của chúng ta. Cái câu trả lời này cũng là cái câu hỏi cho cái bác sĩ Duy Nguyễn và bác sĩ Annie. Như vậy thì những cái câu này đã được trả lời rồi. Cung cười đã done. Yeah. Có một câu hỏi là ưu điểm của K-Line so với hãng khác, thì ở đây có Xenium Litre thì có lẽ là không biết, nhưng mà cái Invisalign. Any advantage of the K-lines in comparison to other system? For example, here the doctor asked about Invisalign and another local system, Litre, and one system of the area Southeast Asia, là Xenium. He would like to ask about what the advantages of K-line in comparison to other other brand name. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I usually don't tend to talk about other brands, especially on webinars. So I have to be very careful here, so as to say something wrong about other competitors in the market.
Thì tôi let me do the translation. Tôi thường có khuynh hướng là không nhắc đến những cái thương hiệu khác trong cái webinar của tôi, bởi vì nói về các thương hiệu khác mà lỡ không đúng thì là điều không hay. Nhắc là những cái đối thủ cạnh tranh, không nên nói về những đối thủ cạnh tranh trong cái webinar của mình. Yeah.
I would say, as an answer to that K-Line's system is built on a very customer-centric approach.
Yeah.
And basically what anyone would get from K-Line is something that is based upon realistic results. So we stand behind the results that we promise, and we stick to that. This is, I don't want to say something about others in the market delivering weird results or delivering unpredictability, but what K-Line provides, from the planning to the material to the service, in combination with the price, is like the sweet spot of a very high quality product at a very good and affordable price for everyone. Yeah, maybe you could translate this first. I'm sorry if I took
thì tôi chỉ muốn nói rằng là cái K-Line thứ nhất là lấy khách hàng làm trung tâm. Cái K-Line là tạo ra những cái kết quả mang tính là thực tế, và thông qua cái kết quả điều trị, thông qua cái dịch vụ, thông qua cái chất liệu mà chúng tôi làm, thì tất cả những cái đó thông qua cái dịch vụ thì K-Line là, tôi không dám nói là K-Line nó tạo ra một cái kết quả thật là weird, tức là rất là hoàn hảo, rất là tốt như vậy weird, nhưng mà nó có thể là nó là dịch vụ, chất liệu, một kết quả rất là thực tế, realistic, thì cái đó là cái chất lượng của, nói chung nó sẽ là một cái chất lượng cao của cái dịch vụ trong lĩnh vực này. Yeah. Okay. Anything you should share with that question? That's enough for that question, right? Yeah.
Yes, I mean that will be enough for that question first.
And the next question is asking about the expression. With the expression case, will your system prolong the treatment duration in comparison to braces, to bracket? In extraction case, K-line system and braces, which is longer of treatment duration?
Well, the treatment duration with using aligners in general, in some cases it could be faster, some cases it could be a little bit longer. When it comes to extraction cases in specific, I would say that, very honestly speaking, braces could be faster, and for the fact that extraction spaces, to close them, you need very good control. You need very controlled movements. You need to take very small movements of 0.1 millimeter of movements per setup, and you need to keep some teeth anchored for some time and move it. With braces, I believe specifically in extraction cases, it might be faster, but again, it's related to so many other factors. So because only the space closure itself is, let's say, the part where braces might be faster than aligners. But when it comes to full alignment, I think that aligners are very efficient at full alignment of teeth, or in general, like resolving crowdings and so on, at also a very, very fast pace. So I say again, on extraction cases, I say aligners might be taken slightly longer in extraction cases, but we're not talking about a lot longer. We're talking maybe about like 2 to 4 months longer.
Yeah. Thì những cái ca nhổ răng á, có khi nó nhanh hơn, có khi chậm hơn. Nhưng mà những ca nhổ răng á, thì cái việc mà kiểm soát di chuyển nó sẽ là khó khăn hơn. Chúng ta phải làm những cái setup là khoảng 1 mm, 1 mm. Và có những cái răng á, thì có những giai đoạn chúng ta phải cho nó đóng vai trò như là anchor, là nail. Rồi sau đó chúng ta mới move nó, mới di chuyển nó. Thì về cái việc đóng khoảng á, thì chúng ta thấy cái việc đóng khoảng nó nhanh hay chậm hơn, nó phụ thuộc vào nhiều yếu tố. Nhưng mà trong cái aligner thì thường nó có thể nó hơi chậm hơn. Nhưng bù vào đó thì trong cái việc mà làm thẳng hàng răng á, thì cái làm thẳng hàng răng của aligner nó có thể là nó nhanh hơn. Nói tóm lại thì điều trị trong những ca nhổ răng thì nhìn chung thì nó có thể là lâu hơn, nhưng mà có thể nó lâu hơn một vài tháng, một số tháng, chứ cũng không có một cái khoảng cách rất là lớn. And in extraction case, do you need some auxiliary appliance to help closing the space besides the aligners itself? Auxiliary for closings.
Yes, I mean, I usually prefer to use class 2 elastics. So we might even use the class 2 elastics first on the premolar, on the premolar or the canine, depends on how far we want to move teeth. But I would certainly, if we consider auxiliaries as in terms of using buttons and elastics, then I would recommend it for sure. There are other techniques like using power arms. I don't think it's necessary to use that, but certainly attachments are a must. So attachments together with buttons and elastics is something that I would recommend.
Thì những cái khí cụ khác mà tôi thường dùng để giúp đóng khoảng như là thuông, thì chúng ta có thể mắc thuông từ răng cối nhỏ hoặc là răng 3, thuông hạng 2. Có trong trường hợp thì chúng ta có thể dùng thêm cái power arm, là dán những cái cánh tay mà lực, các cánh tay nối dài lên trên để chuyển cái vị trí đặt lực, và thì là dùng các attachment, đó là những cái dụng cụ phụ. Cho em hỏi, khi làm attachment xong cần lấy xi măng dư ra cách nào để lấy mà không trầy attachment? And this question asks about the attachment bonding, bonding attachment. And after you bonding attachment, do we need to remove the excess composite and how to remove the excess composite without damaging the true shape of the attachment.
Yeah. A very good question, because basically I would always recommend to use the diamond burr with the red one, that could basically just remove only the excess composite, but not removing anything from the enamel. And while doing that, certainly you have to be very careful not to touch the attachment itself. That's one way. I'll mention also the second way, but after you, maybe if you want to translate.
Dạ, thì khi như tôi đã có trình bày thì là chúng ta sẽ lấy cái xi măng dư, không phải là xi măng, cái đó không phải là xi măng các anh chị, cái đó chính là cái chất composite chứ không phải xi măng. Composite dư là bằng cái mũi khoan diamond, mũi kim cương màu đỏ, và chúng ta phải lấy cẩn thận không cho nó phạm vào cái phần chính thức của attachment, mà nó cũng không được chạm vào men răng vì nó có thể làm trầy cái men răng. Dạ. Đó là cái phương pháp thứ nhất. And what is the second?
The second one is a technique that I use personally, and I find it very effective. Is if the part of the attachment on the template itself, if you somehow, like, let's say this is the attachment part, and if you use like a very thin perch, and you could just open a very, very small hole.
Yeah.
There. When you put composite in there and just fix the template on the teeth, then the extra composite will come out.
Wow.
You could certainly do that as well. I prefer to do it. It's very, very efficient.
Yeah. Cách thứ hai là cách tôi rất ưa thích làm, và đây là cách cá nhân tôi thường làm. Tức là trên cái template đó, template đó, tôi lấy một cái kim thiệt là nhỏ ở cái phần mà ở trên đó, tôi chích một cái lỗ thiệt là nhỏ. Cho nên khi tôi đặt cái attachment vào thì cái phần xi măng dư nó theo cái lỗ đó nó trào ra. Cho nên thì tôi sẽ có được một cây, không có cái xi măng dư nhiều ở trong cây đường viền mà nó giữa cây attachment với mặt răng. Thank you. I think that's and is there any third method in the method number 3? Or that's the two techniques you use.
These are the two. These are the two.
Thì mình có hỏi ông thầy là có cái thêm cách thứ ba nào không, thì kêu chỉ có hai cách đó thôi. Thì bác sĩ máng đệm nước. And can you speak something more about the agua spring to help to control, to eliminate the TMJ joint band agua spring?
The aqua splint. Yeah. Well, the aqua splint, let me write it down also somewhere here.
Thì cái aqua splint để tôi tìm cái chắc thầy tìm rồi thầy chia sẻ lại cái màn hình.
So the aqua splint, it's basically made out of, I mean, you could search for it online, but it's basically like let's say two pads connected with one like kind of tunnel, and it has like a fluid inside it, so that it basically helps the patient when they bite. It makes equilibrium for the bite. There are two types. There is one that is prefabricated. There is one that is custom made. I certainly prefer the custom made one, and I tried it on not so many cases, but let's say like somewhere between 20-30 cases. I believe in most, not all of the cases, but most of the cases it had very good results and the symptoms were resolved.
Thì cái aqua spring này nó như thế này, nó là hai cái bọc mà có chứa chất lỏng vào trong nước. Thì cái chữ agua có nghĩa là nước đó các anh chị, agua trong tiếng Latin có nghĩa là nước đó. Thì và nó nối nhau bằng cái đường ống để cho nó có thể chạy qua chạy lại. Cái đường ống ở phía trước, còn hai cái nước ở phía sau. Khi mà mình bị có vấn đề về khớp, mình cần phải có một sự cân bằng, thì chính cái lực nhai của chúng ta đặt vào và nước nó chạy từ bên này qua bên kia. Thì tôi thấy tôi dùng cái này, và cái này là cái loại nó bán sẵn, và mình chỉ cần có một cái sự điều chỉnh đệm thêm cho nó phù hợp với bệnh nhân, chứ không phải là cái loại mà điều trị được làm hoàn toàn cá nhân hóa. Các anh chị cứ tìm cái chữ đó sẽ thấy. Các phương pháp duy trì sau chỉnh nha cây clear. Thì câu này có trong bài rồi nhưng mà anyway chúng ta cũng hỏi. The retention protocol after the case clear. I think that you have mentioned in your presentation, but this doctor would like to, maybe he would like to know well again about your retention protocol.
We would like to hear more about the retention protocol, right?
Yeah.
Sure. So I tend to always go for double retention. So I put first the permanent retainer, which I usually use this aesthetic retainer prefabricated. I put it in the same visit. The patient says, yes, I'm happy. I'm also happy with the results. So I place it darkly. And after I put it, I take new impressions.
Yeah.
And send it to the lab to make for the patient the removal retainers, so that we have a backup in case the permanent retainer for any reason broke or whatsoever. The patient could wear the other removal retainer.
Dạ, thì tôi xin nói lại về cái quy trình mà duy trì của tôi là duy trình kép. Tôi sẽ dùng cái dán cây bằng thẩm mỹ á, bằng cây thanh dán thẩm mỹ chứ không phải bằng kim loại. Loại mà nó bằng các sợi đó chị, dán thẩm mỹ. Và tôi sau khi dán xong tôi lấy một cái dấu, tôi gửi đi lab để làm một cái khí cụ duy trì tháo lắp, để đặng nếu như mà cái trường hợp mà cái dán thẩm mỹ đó, tức là một khí cụ cố định nó bị gãy xúc, thì có ngay cái khí cụ tháo lắp để cho bệnh nhân điền vào liền. Rồi, như vậy thì chúng ta sẽ tiếp tục là với phương pháp này áp dụng cho lứa tuổi nào, khớp cắn loại nào, trong trường hợp cắn ngược bệnh nhân hở hàm ếch, quy trình xử lý như thế nào? Câu hỏi này là gì? And this technique it means that the case line can what age we can apply for what age of the patient, and in what kinds of malocclusion. And this is the first part of the question from this doctor. The age and what kind of malocclusion we can apply KK.
Yeah. So when it comes to the age could start basically from even 6-7 years old of treatment. And when we start with 6 to 7 years old of treatment, we need a different type of treatment. Now, usually we take that into like the advanced course, where we start to explain for very young patients what could we do, because the method of approach is different. And then comes afterwards, let's say the mixed dentition period. And in the mixed dentition in the teens, early teens, there is again a different way of treatment. And again, in these two, we sometimes try to involve mandibular advancement in these treatments, and could do it on 2 or 3 phases, the whole treatment, rather than just the normal method that we do for adult treatments. Other than that, I mean, this is something that first I would recommend for an orthodontist who's doing the treatment. Otherwise, for dentists who have entered the aligner world, I wouldn't recommend that they go for very young kids, but rather go for patients that are over over 18 years old.
Thì cái tuổi mà áp dụng cái phương pháp này thật sự là có thể rất là nhỏ, từ 6-7 tuổi. Với 6-7 tuổi thì mình cũng có thể áp dụng cái này, nhưng mà tất nhiên là cái cách điều trị nó sẽ khác cái cách điều trị mà thông thường tôi vừa trình bày, và cần phải có một cái khóa học nâng cao thì mới có thể làm được cái đối với đối tượng mà 6-7 tuổi. Kế tiếp cái 6-7 tuổi là có cái bộ răng mixed dentition ở tuổi teen á, thì cũng có điều trị theo cách khác, trong đó có cái chức năng là mandibular advancement, là đưa hàm dưới ra trước, thì cũng cần phải học thêm nữa mới được. Và cái điều trị này thường thường nó qua là 2 đến 3 giai đoạn. Thì đối với những nha sĩ và những người mà mới bắt đầu vào điều trị hay là chưa quen thuộc á, thì tôi khuyến cáo là nên điều trị theo cách thông thường cho những bệnh nhân là từ khoảng 17-18 tuổi trở lên, thì đó là phương pháp thông thường. Cắn ngược hở của bệnh nhân hở hàm ếch, quy trình xử lý như thế nào? And this question is very particular. This doctor would like to ask you about how to apply the aligner system for the crossbite in cleft palate patient, in CLP patient, cleft lip and palate patient. This is a very advanced because for a very specific type of orthodontic treatment.
Maybe I just want to make sure that I understood. The question is how K-line could fit in these cases, if K-line could treat these cases or not, or
this can we how do we treat the patient with K-line system in the case with cleft lip palate patient and crossbite?
Yes,
anterior crossbite.
Well, we treat so many of these cases. I mean, it's not I would say out of let's say the scope of treatment. It is within the scope of treatment. It depends, however, like what's the degree of complexity. So basically we do a bite raising, and with the bite raising accompanied with what we call like round tripping, we do some intrusion, and accordingly when we correct the bite, then we re-extrude the teeth once again. But we tend to use more of bite raising throughout the treatment. And again, it's down to the complexity of the cases. Like severe or deep bite, we wouldn't recommend it only with aligners, but to combine that accordingly with accessories. Could be using TADs. So we sometimes I use TADs, mini implants, to intrude the teeth to some extent if there was a very deep overbite in company with the crossbite. If it's a mild one, then it's pretty easy, just with slight bite raising, and then accordingly we move the teeth outwards. Now the good thing is that the aligners themselves, they will have the bite raising in them, so there is no need to make any let's say customized bite raising.
Thì đây là cái câu đối tượng bệnh nhân rất là đặc biệt, thì muốn điều trị với những hệ thống mà aligner trong đó K-line á, thì chúng ta cần phải nâng khớp cắn lên, và trong những trường hợp mà nặng á, có thể chúng ta phải kết hợp với lại cái TAS, tức là implant, để chúng ta điều trị. Và một cái điểm mà ưu điểm trong những cái ca đó là bản thân cây máng nó có cây lớp mặt nhai, thì cái đó nó đã tạo sẵn một phần cái chức năng nâng khớp cắn rồi. Thì tất nhiên những cái ca này là những ca rất là đặc biệt á, thì mình nghĩ là cái người đặt câu hỏi cần phải vừa nắm vững cả chỉnh nha truyền thống lẫn chỉnh nha bằng aligner thì có thể mới ứng dụng cái loại này được. Mình có một cái câu hỏi nữa là nguyên nhân và phương án xử lý trường hợp aligner số 1 đã không vừa răng. And when the aligner number 1 do not fit to the teeth of the patient, and can you explain why and how to address it? The aligner number 1 right from the aligner number 1.
Yeah, so the first aligner, basically, if it doesn't fit, I mean, we have some kind of a plan. So like, let's say an investigation plan to know exactly where is this exactly coming from, because especially the first aligner is more indicative. It points the fingers towards a wrong, or let's say faulty impression. However, it's not always a faulty impression. Sometimes it comes from severe undercuts between teeth where the aligner cannot fit in, because so it might be also related to the manufacturing. However, it's highly likely that it is a problem from the impression itself.
Thì nguyên nhân của cái thường thì cái aligner số 1 á, là chúng ta có thể đặt vào với cái áp lực của ngón tay. Nhưng mà nếu như mà aligner đặt số vào á, có thể là do cái bản chất của răng á, là nó có nhiều cái vùng lệm quá. Vùng lệm của các cây răng nó nhiều quá. Hoặc là thứ hai là do cái quá trình mà sản xuất, cái sự không chính xác, hay là cái mức độ mà di chuyển răng, cái mức độ thì ngay từ cái đầu tiên nó không có được chính xác, nó có hai nguyên nhân. And how to address it, how to help to have the very easy fit of the first aligner.
Well, again, it's down to if the impressions is correct, and there is no problem with the impression at all, then I'd say that it's something related to maybe the manufacturing. It rarely happens, but it could still happen for sure. So accordingly, it's not something that the doctor would need to do. So from the doctor's side, there is nothing to be done except maybe photos that would show where exactly is the non-fitting. Is it in the back? Is it in the front? Is it everywhere? So that the manufacturing or the production could know or investigate where exactly the problem is, and when they remake the aligner accordingly, it will fit better in the next time.
Dạ, thì nhiều yếu tố lắm anh chị, nó liên quan đến cái việc này. Thường thì cái máng đầu tiên nó không có khó để chúng ta đặt vào, nhưng điều đó có thể xảy ra thì trong những trường hợp mà chúng ta thấy nó khó, có thể là gắn nó cái máng nó khít vào ở phía trước, ở phía sau, mà chúng ta thấy rất là nhiều cái sự không khít sát, thì có thể là phải làm lại cái máng đầu tiên. Câu hỏi kế tiếp là sau chỉnh nha làm thế nào để lấy hết attachment mà không bị trầy xước mang răng? And after the the case finished, how to remove entirely the attachment without destroying the enamel. It is something like the removal of composite after braces, conventional braces.
It's exactly done in the same way, and I would recommend to use this again, this red diamond burr that is quite smooth, and it removes mostly composite rather than anything else.
Dạ, thì cái phương pháp này cũng giống như tôi đã nói với phương pháp là chúng ta lấy cái composite dư quanh attachment, chúng ta có thể dùng cái mũi diamond màu đỏ để chúng ta lấy một cách cẩn thận thì nó được ok. And what is the maximum time when between the submission until we have the feedback, we have the return of the treatment plan from KClear? What is the time from submission until the clinician, the doctor, have the treatment plan from KClear?
I think VTank might confirm this afterwards. It's usually three working days.
Yeah, how many working days?
Three
Thường là 3 ngày làm việc. 3 ngày làm việc tức là phải trừ 2 ngày cuối tuần anh chị nộp thứ bảy, thứ sáu thì phải thứ bảy chủ nhật là không tính, là 3 ngày làm việc. 3 working day. Thank you. Bây giờ là câu hỏi cuối cùng, là xin doctor giải đáp sự kết hợp giữa phương pháp mắc cài giai đoạn đầu và kết thúc bằng KClear. And thời gian đã muộn rồi và chúng tôi chỉ chấp nhận những câu hỏi được đánh vào trong question and Q&A thôi. Những câu hỏi mà trong chat có lẽ là không đúng cái ô thôi, chúng ta cho qua ha. Thì can you explain to this doctor the combination of the conventional brush case in the first stage of treatment, and after that the KClear to finish the case? Braces in the
got it. Yeah.
And can we combine the two methods, especially for those who have started to treat the patient with the braces already, and now he or she would like to finish the patient, remove the braces, and put on the line. Yeah.
That is definitely possible. I mean, we get that question quite a lot. So it is definitely possible. It depends, however, like what is the status of the treatment. So I would always recommend to send photos, if possible, even impressions after removing the wire and everything, to send like temporary impressions to have like a treatment potential result with aligners, to see if this is something that was, let's say, the request of the doctor and the patient from the beginning or not.
Yeah. Thì cái trường hợp mà như bác sĩ đề cập thì diễn ra cũng khá là nhiều, tức là có nhiều ca đang giữa chừng điều trị chỉnh nhai vì lý do gì đó, chỉnh nhai bằng mắc cài rồi sau đó muốn chuyển qua dùng aligner, thì chúng ta cũng có thể là sẽ gửi các hình ảnh, gửi cái mẫu hàm sau khi là lấy dây cung ra, và gửi cái yêu cầu cần làm gì cho cái đi vào cái cổng nhận cái ca. Yeah. Như vậy là phương pháp đó hoàn toàn có thể các anh chị, hoàn toàn có thể quý bác sĩ. Như vậy thì câu hỏi đó có giải đáp được cái thắc mắc của một bác sĩ mà khuyết danh ở đây không? Yeah. This is the on xin hỏi ban tổ chức. Thì chúng ta có lẽ chúng ta dừng ở đây cũng vừa rồi đúng không?
Dạ, vâng, em cảm ơn bác Thọ. Thank you, Dr. Sherif. Dạ sau 30 phút chúng ta đã đi qua rất nhiều câu hỏi hay và hấp dẫn. Tuy nhiên với thời gian của Q&A đã hết cho nên em xin phép chuyển qua phần tiếp theo ạ. Khi tham dự webinar tối hôm nay, quý bác sĩ sẽ có cơ hội nhận được một máy tâm nước Panasonic EW1513 nếu có ca điều trị cây clear trong khoảng thời gian từ ngày 22 tháng 6 đến ngày 22 tháng 7 năm 2022. Và đặc biệt đối với quý bác sĩ có ca điều trị đầu tiên thì sẽ được giảm 15%. Và vâng, sau 2 tiếng đồng hồ thì buổi chia sẻ của chúng ta đã thành công tốt đẹp với rất nhiều kiến thức bổ ích và những câu hỏi hay. Và em cũng hy vọng là các bác sĩ tham gia sẽ hài lòng về buổi chia sẻ ngày hôm nay ạ. Với mong muốn được cải thiện buổi webinar tiếp theo, em xin quý bác sĩ hoàn thành giúp em bản khảo sát bằng cách quét mã QR trên màn hình. Em xin cảm ơn ạ. Và em xin chân thành cảm ơn Dr. Sherif Kandil và bác sĩ Trần Thế Thọ đã dành thời gian để chia sẻ những kiến thức tâm huyết của mình để các bác sĩ có thêm góc nhìn mới cũng như tích lũy thêm kiến thức về giải pháp niềng răng trong suốt khi clear. Em cũng cảm ơn tất cả các bác sĩ đã dành thời gian tham dự buổi chia sẻ ngày hôm nay. Chúc quý bác sĩ có một buổi tối vui vẻ. Em xin chào và hẹn gặp lại quý bác sĩ trong những buổi webinar tiếp theo ạ. I sincerely thank Dr. Sherif Kandil and Dr. Trần Thế Thọ spend time to share the knowledge and passion so that doctors could gain new capacity as well as accumulate more knowledge about the clear aligner treatment. I also thank all the doctors who spent time to attend today's sharing event. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sherif Kandil, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you a lot. I just the final comment, Dr. Kandil. One doctor, they would like to express your system to his patient, and he asked some patient to the dental office and join our webinar today to hear about how the clear word, and it's very interesting to read that on the chatbot in Vietnamese. So not only dentists, but also they bring some potential patients to follow our webinar today. Thank you all. Xin cảm ơn tất cả mọi người. Thì mình đọc cái chat thấy có bác sĩ Trứ, chắc bác sĩ Trứ nói rằng là có mời một số bệnh nhân đến đây để cùng nghe về cái khả năng và điều trị của K-Clear. Thì thật là đó là một cái tin rất là vui và cũng rất là thú vị để chia sẻ với thầy Kandil và Thọ đã vừa nói. Xin chào, cảm ơn tất cả mọi người. Thank you, bye bye,
everyone.
Enjoy. And it's now the evening, right? It's now still in the afternoon in Germany, right?
In Germany, it's 4.
And it's in 9 p.m. in Vietnam already. Xin chúc tất cả mọi người một buổi tối an lành. Xin cảm ơn ban tổ chức. Bye bye.
Good night. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Pleasure having you.